Ron.
Evening, folks. How you doing?
There she is.
Hello.
We're lovely, thank you.
Hey, how are you?
Lovely to see you.
Or is it?
Oh,
Oh.
what did Michael just do then?
Just like that.
Like that?
Like that.
Live long and prosper.
Well,
That's
just
one.
just as the record, just as that record was about to end, then, track, MP3, whatever you call it these days. I don't know what you modern young folks call it, but it's a record. When that record, which was Jane by Jefferson Starship, was about to finish, then I suddenly realised the mouse that wasn't working because the battery had gone in it. So I had to dive into the cupboard and get a battery very, very quickly. But we managed to get it all sorted by the end of the track, which is what we do here. We can handle anything. So let's go around the room. Let's see what everybody's been up to. Daz, what you've been up to?
I'd watch him. There's been very little, 5 or 10 minutes of clear skies, and in come the clouds. So I've been trying to take some photographs. Total waste of time. So the here endeth the lesson. Good night.
That's it. So, Roger, has it been down the same in down there in Pirate Land? What's it been like? Have you been sailing up and down the Khyber Pass or wherever you go?
Ooh, Mr. Matron.
Oh, matron.
I've been watching the moon, watching the ISS transiting over, just generally just waiting for the skies to clear and hope the moon disappears to get some objects like noctilucent clouds, hopefully.
Well, we're going to talk to Mary about that in a bit because Mary's, photographs noctilucent clouds. She's quite well known for photographing her noctilucent clouds. So I will go over to Mary. Mary, have you been up to anything really exciting astronomically?
I am currently almost at the end of month 1 of a challenge to do an astronomy sketch every day for 2 months. And it's been really good fun, but quite hard. As well as that, just photographing lots of pictures of rainbows and showers and clouds. And if the sky's not clear, just take pictures of the clouds. That's my motto.
Yeah.
May I just ask, Mary, what sort of a sadist would set you a challenge like that?
Myself, of course.
Yourself? Oh, right. I was going to say, it's not a usual challenge, is it?
Well,
1 month would have been fine, but no, Mary has to say, I'm going to do it for 2. So
that's it. I mean, the other day, it shows how bored I was getting the other day that I actually did a time lapse of the clouds going over the house. And then when I looked back at it, I thought, what are you doing?
We live in England. It's a good thing to do because we have it a lot.
Well, there is a cloud society, isn't there, apparently?
Yeah.
Yes, there is. Yes.
Maybe we should join it. Okay, we'll go to Michael. Michael, what have you been up to, photography-wise or space go watching?
Go space watch. We've got a couple of meetings coming up next couple of weeks. This week we've got Robin Haig of Sky Aurora with From Scotland to Space. And next week on the 2nd of June, we have Stephen Eisel from Virgin Orbit with a talk about Virgin Orbit all the way from California. So looking forward to that one as well.
That sounds absolutely brilliant. Kath?
Well, I've been in Wales the last 3 days. I actually have been on a mini holiday and we did have a clear night. Now, unfortunately, I didn't have my telescope with me because I was staying with my friend and her 2 4-year-old twins. So I thought maybe not take the telescope, but I had a lovely moment because the twins have special needs, they're autistic. And I was outside looking at the moon. They came outside and I was trying to show them the moon. And at first they weren't that interested, but then the one little girl kept coming up and looking, and I was holding my finger up and pointing, and she was looking down my finger, and I kept saying moon, moon, and she went moo, moo. And then she went back inside, came outside and stood there and pointed to it and went moon. And and it just touched my heart. Because I didn't have my telescope, but obviously at some point, but it just touched my heart that she recognised and remembered what I'd shown her.
Brilliant.
Don't forget, you've got a 10-inch Dobby you've got to pick up.
I know, Pete. I shall ring you in the.
And you went to Wales, so I'm guessing you passed by. So she's got a black mark there. Yeah?
I didn't actually pass by. It took me on a bizarre route all down because I was going to Pwllheli.
Well, so you should have gone past our house to Pwllheli.
Well, I thought I was coming past your house, Pete. I was nearly ringing for a cup of tea en route, but it took me off one of the islands before I got to you, all down through the country. I think there might have been an accident. I'm not sure. It diverted me for some reason.
New sat nav.
No, she had a few. Now she had a few gins the night before and looked at the map. That's trouble.
She had it upside down.
Pete.
Yeah.
Don't know what you mean.
Not at all. Not at all. No. So so that was great that you got your youngsters interested in the moon. I think that's brilliant. That's what it's all about.
It is. Well done, Kath.
It is. Yeah.
That's what it's all about, isn't it?
I shall work on them as they grow up. They will be astronomers.
Simon, anything exciting happened down there in Bath?
I'm drumming up an audience, a huge audience for Wednesday night, because we have our ultimate speaker. Not being rude to Mary, but you've been trumped, because we've got an amazing speaker. You're just one amazing. This coming Wednesday night. I'm not sure who it is.
No.
Any ideas? No. Handsome chap. Anyway.
Is it yourself, Simon?
No. No. It's a professional astronomer.
Really?
Yeah.
Mars images, perhaps, or galaxy images.
There could well be.
He's full of it, isn't he? He's full of it.
So
that's all I have to say.
How much did he pay you for all that?
And he played bass guitar. Here we go.
I think for this talk, I'm having to pay them.
Lots of advertising, yeah. But on the sidelines, we're also organising, like you guys have got, you Tut North have had these day-long sessions, astronomy sessions. Cardiff, Bristol and Bath astronomers are all going to try and do the similar thing, but down south. So we're trying to organise that at the moment. So a day-long astronomy thing. So that'd be good.
That'd be really good. And I've been speaking to the guys at the Canadian Royal Astronomical Society of Canada, and they're very interested in talking to you, Simon, about the Herschel Museum, because they're very interested in it. So you'll have to stay up late for that one, because it's not till 1 o'clock in the morning when it starts.
Pete, I'll sell you, you sell me. Okay.
Yep, I've already sold you.
Get a room, you two. Get a room.
I've been pimped by Pete.
Yeah, I've already sold you.
I've
pimped him out. That was funny, because we had Emma on the Solar Sphere Day, and we actually introduced her because her name's Emma Ride, and there is that showing the Pimp My Ride, and we were pimping Emma Ride, so we called it Pimp My Ride, and so it's now caught on now, and she actually uses that, I think. So we go on to Ron. I know you've been not just astronomy wise, Ron. You can mention it because it's astronomy and music, about you having a bass made for yourself.
Yeah, well, as Daz said, I can't do much astronomy with the amount of cloud and rain we've had. It threw it down for about 5 hours earlier. Yes, I'm a bit of a novice when it comes to bass, but I've decided I'm going to have one made, so I'm going to be talking to Aletheia next weekend and discussing options and finishes and selection of wood, so that should be quite exciting.
Brilliant.
Sounds great. I can't wait. I need to try and play it as well. I tried to play Mary's bass, but I couldn't press the strings down.
No, I struggle to play mine sometimes, so I don't.
Yeah, so
the photography I've been doing is more conventional stuff, and I did have some exhibited last weekend, so that was
well done.
Something I never had done before.
Excellent.
Yeah, because I mean, the weather in Shropshire has been unbelievably bad. I mean, like you say, today we had a downpour that was like, I haven't seen a downpour like that in ages. It was just torrential. So yeah, and of course Daz is inflicted by the same weather as
unfortunately.
Yeah. So Rachel, have you managed to get outside, or has it been pretty much the same for you, really?
No, it's awful. The weather's been really bad, but I've still done lots of spacey bits. I've been working on the astronomy space plans for Mark Thompson's lecture we were talking about a couple of weeks ago. I've just got the proofread for one of my articles that I've written for very young children for astronomy, so that'll be getting published in July. And we've just got the go-ahead to do our outreach again at my home society, so we'll be able to be delivering some children and having them look through the telescopes again, which is really good news. I'm really excited about that. So
that's excellent. It's excellent. It's kind of, I mean, not bringing it into it, but I don't know those that watched the Eurovision Song Contest on Saturday, nothing to do with the songs or anything like that, but the fact that lots of people were together enjoying themselves kind of made things feel normal again to a certain extent. Right. And I think when we're watching a program, it's like I watched some people might mock me for it, but I watch Match of the Day and all that. So watching that and starting to see people coming back into the stadiums, it kind of gives you that uplift a little bit. I don't know if you feel the same, but just seeing things progressing in a positive direction.
Well, Eurovision was an official experiment, wasn't it, in getting people together to see if people can now get together safely. So I don't know what the outcome of that was, whether they're happy, but yeah, it was just a great event to see everybody together after all this time.
Yeah, I think it's great that we're starting to see that, and which means astronomical events probably towards the end of the year will start to see societies pulling people back in, which will be great. So Dave, up in Liverpool, how's things been going?
Weather watching, rain, cloud between the rain in between the cloud, occasional bit of sunshine, but not long enough. That's been the weather report. Thank you very much, everyone. Good night.
That's about it, though, isn't it, at the moment? It's just a weather report. And Andy, finally to Andy over there in Spain.
Well, today we had the first real foretaste of things to come with the weather. It was 26 degrees, not a cloud in the sky, azure skies, beautifully blue skies, no clouds at all. And I thought, here we are. We'll start getting some clear nights now. 6 o'clock this evening, the cloud rolled in, and I'm looking out the window now. It's 8 octaves and gunmetal grey. So, and it's cold. It's
all right. We've successfully exported our weather to you.
Yeah. Honestly, Ron, this year we've had remarkably similar weather to Britain. Cloud, rain, and cold temperatures for Spain. Anyway, it's been remarkable how cold and cloudy May has been, because it's not normally.
Well, my first trip to Barcelona was at the end of April, a long time ago, when I first met Mark, and I was expecting sun, and I brought summer dresses. The first thing I had to do was go to H&M and buy a load of hoodies, because it was freezing and raining.
It can be in April, but normally, Mary, by late May, as we're up into the 25, 26, 27 mark, and then it goes up to hitting 40 at the height of summer. So yes, it's a weird year for weather. When I went to Euro Disney for the first and only time, it wasn't that long after it had opened, and that was in late April. And they built Euro Disney on a flat plain with no trees to break the wind, and there was a wind whipping through Euro Disney. Peter, my colleagues who I was with, they were wearing coats and gloves, and that was late April. It was freezing. So, you do get bizarre conditions.
Yeah. I mean, it's just despair. But if you travel like I do, when I travel anywhere, all I own is kind of what I wear. And I mean, I've got a plastic Aldi bag, and you can get my entire wardrobe in that plastic Aldi bag. It contains a few black t-shirts, one extra pair of pumps, and another pair of jeans, and they're all black. So, and I wear the only coat I got. It's a hoodie, and I don't, because I'm not. People have said in the past that I'm not sartorially elegant, and I've got an inclination to think they're probably right.
But Pete, does it matter at the end of the day? Of course it doesn't.
No, not with me. It doesn't. I mean, that's just me. People always say to me, "You've got the same T-shirt on again." No, I've got 2 T-shirts that are exactly the same, one on, one in the wash. And they both say, well, I've got Sonic Rock on at the minute, but there we go. So I've got 3 T-shirts. But astronomically, I've got some good news for me anyway, because I was going to sell all my equipment, wasn't I? Well, I've sold the mount, but we worked out, I've been having a chat with Rother Valley Optics, and there's a particular, it's the Next Star Evolution Celestron. And because the mount is quite light and at waist height, I can pick that on, put that onto a tripod that I leave outside without having to bend, which means I can put that on and then I can put the tube on. But not only that, you can take the tube off the Next Star mount and put on the solar scope without having to bend as well. So it means I haven't got to sell my solar scope because I haven't got to bend down to use it, which is great. And of course, I'm not going to look through it because I mean I don't look through telescopes. So I'm just going to put the camera on it and sit in the kitchen on the chair and look at it on the screen. So I haven't got to sell that stuff. I've sold the mount because I could no longer pick the mount up. There's no chance of me actually picking the mount up at all. So our local Liberal, he would have been our councillor, but he got beat. He come and bought it. So it's nice to know that we've got somebody else in the area into astronomy as well that I didn't realise we had, but there we go. So what we're going to do now, we're going to go to another track, and the track is by Hawkwind and about it. So here we go. We're going to go over now. Okay, panel, without you being heard, going recording started. How are we doing? Have we got some news?
We have got quite a bit of news, I think. First of all, I'm going to go straight to Mary because it's the start of the noctilucent cloud season, and Mary will explain what's going on and what are noctilucent clouds and whereabouts on the Earth's globe, sphere, it's not flat, whereabouts we can observe them. Okay, over to you, Mary.
Okay, so summer for us in the Northern Hemisphere is a time we can see noctilucent clouds, and they're basically clouds that are right up 85 kilometers up, so they're right on the edge of space, only 15 kilometers below Aurora, so they're really high up. But the ice crystals that they form from are so tiny that you can't see them in daylight. So the name noctilucent translates as night shining because you can only see them at night. But they're really interesting because they're illuminated from below when the sun is a certain number of degrees below the horizon. And all the lower levels of the atmosphere are shadow, and then you just have these kind of bluish white clouds just glowing, and they're so beautiful. I mean, everyone knows I detest early starts, but I will get up at 2 o'clock every morning during noctilucent cloud season just in case we can see them. But they're visible usually from around about the end of May through to mid-August, and we've just had the satellite has been back that there's been a little bit of accumulation. And these clouds actually accumulate. They're a type of polar mesospheric cloud, so they cluster around the North Pole, but because they're so high, we can see them from the UK. So basically, you need to look in the west or northwest after sunset because they're around the North Pole, so you can see them in the northern sky. Once we get towards midsummer, you might see them all night long, but if you see them before dawn, they tend to be more towards the eastern side. But it really depends on where the accumulation is, and that they're kind of rotating around the pole, that they do weird things. They're incredibly difficult to predict. So basically just look for them. They'll be very low down usually, but last year I had a display that was visible all the way up to the zenith from Oxfordshire. So usually though, they're very low down in the north, like 10 degrees above the horizon. So yeah, they're really, really beautiful. They're very different from any other sorts of clouds that you're likely to see because of this kind of ethereal glowing quality that they have. And they're just very interesting. They'd never been observed until the late 1800s. And we know that people back then were very good meteorologists. And there are several theories about that. And one of them is that global warming could be having an effect because it's very dry up in the mesosphere, and you can only get ice if there's a source of water, and you can only get that water to freeze if it's below minus 123 up there, and that only happens when it's warmer in the lower levels. So if you've got greenhouse gases making the troposphere warmer, it gets colder up in the mesosphere. So that's probably one of the reasons. We also know that micrometeorite dust has to be the seed at the center, or possibly volcanic ash, but there's still so much that we don't know and understand about them, and I guess that's why I find them so intriguing. So have you guys all seen them? I know Pete, you did last year, didn't you?
I've never actually seen one.
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, I was just
Beautiful.
thinking, Mary, are they visible from the southern hemisphere, the negative latitudes?
They are, but only during their summer. So during our winter months, then they accumulate around the South Pole. But it's weird, they're not observed as often in the southern hemisphere, and it's probably partly because a lot of the southern hemisphere is ocean. There just isn't as much density of population that are going to be looking for them. But the satellite goes from north to south during the different NLC seasons, and the south hemisphere NLC seasons are always way more unpredictable than the northern ones, and we don't know why, but it does very strange things. But looking at the accumulation, you do get a lot of NLC down there, but not as much as we get in the north. So again, could be a amount of population in each hemisphere and pollution. causing global warming.
I was going to say, are they coming further south? Because I mean, where we live, it's not that far south. It's not south, is it? It's kind of northwest of the UK, and I never saw any here until about 3 years ago, and I've been here 30 years, and that's the first time I ever saw any from this location. So, is it the fact that you might be right that as pollution is getting worse, the clouds are becoming more prominent, and we're seeing them further south?
I think it's also because they're connected to solar activity and they tend to be brighter when we're at solar minimum. The reason for that is when the sun is more active, there's more UV bombarding the atmosphere. And if there is any water up there, there isn't a lot, but if there is, the UV will break it down. So when the sun is very active, you're not likely to see as many displays or as much NLC display. So we've been in a really big minimum period lately. So I think we've probably had more displays because of that.
Mary, do I remember correctly that there's a theory that the water droplets form around meteoric dust and that's how they get started?
Yeah, they think it is meteoric dust. Originally, it was thought to be volcanic ash, and that's because they were first observed 3 years after a big eruption of Mount Krakatoa. But it doesn't really follow suit now with eruptions with other displays, but there probably is a bit of both. It's going to be very, very minute particles of micrometeorite dust or volcanic dust. It's dust of some kind that is very, very small, because the ice crystal that forms around it is unbelievably tiny and it's absolutely minuscule. So we're talking about small fragments of dust that kind of just, they're the catalyst for the crystal forming.
And what exactly gives them their blue color?
It's literally because when they're illuminated from below by the sun, it gives them that glowing kind of, they just shine out from the sort of shadowy bits below. But you can get them red. They're sometimes white, sometimes blue, sometimes red. So they're not exclusively blue. You can get red ones. And they have them on Mars as well. The ones they have on Mars are even higher than the ones we have on Earth. So,
which presumably would be caused by Martian dust, which is in the atmosphere in large quantities.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
So yeah, they are so interesting, and we do still have a lot to learn about them.
Got a message from Stefan. A message from Stefan in Moscow. He said, first of all, he said, are these visible from a city? And secondly, he said, are they visible under moonlight?
Yes and yes. I've seen them from light polluted locations because these are seen during deep twilight. You don't need darkness for them to be visible. What's important is the sun is usually between 5 and 15 degrees below the horizon. The only thing is that if you are too far north, it doesn't get dark enough for them to shine out of the shadowy regions. So if you go too far north, then you can't see them. So people in the kind of North Pole can't see the clouds that are above their pole because it doesn't get dark there. So you need deep twilight basically to be able to see them. So you don't need it to be dark. And yeah, as long as you've got a low unobscured horizon, you should be able to see them.
Okay, Jazz, you got a question?
Yeah, just a quick one. I'd just like to read this out. It goes along the lines of what Mary was saying, that the northern hemisphere is more land and possibly more pollution. It says recent studies suggest that increased atmospheric methane emissions produce additional water vapor once the methane molecules reach the mesospheric region in the sky, creating or reinforcing existing noctilucent clouds. So yes, it probably is far more to do with
yeah, because naturally there just isn't any methane up there, not much anyway, and there isn't really a lot of water up there either. So it is interesting, and there's no way that they would have been observed before that and not recorded, because people knew weather well enough by the late 1800s. You know, people were actively recording every kind of atmospheric optical phenomenon from the 1600s, so we would have seen them before if they'd occurred for sure. So
that points out that Mary takes some amazing images, and you also compile them to make an animation where you can actually see the clouds dancing across the horizon. What's the best way to photograph these with a DSLR, a digital camera? Or mobile phone
because,
even.
Well, if you're doing a time lapse, you can get them with a mobile phone, definitely, because if you get a bright display during twilight, my phone struggles, but most people have a better phone than me. Pete's phone will struggle. But you can quite easily get pictures of them with an SLR, and I tend to do, it depends really, because the light is constantly changing during twilight. It means you're constantly adjusting the camera, but I tend to do between 2 seconds and 10-second shots, depending how shadowy the atmosphere is getting. But if you just keep shooting like with maybe a 10-15 second gap and just keep going, when you time lapse them, they move in such an addictive way. They kind of like follow ripples and gravity waves, and they're moving slowly, and they evolve as well, because as the sun is either getting lower, they'll change their altitude, then as the sun climbs, they'll climb higher again, and they're mesmerizing. They're just so mesmerizing to time lapse. They don't behave like any clouds lower down, so they're just beautiful. So you can do it with easily with a basic SLR. I tend to shoot about ISO 800 because it's twilight, it's not fully dark there.
Yeah, I managed to catch them, was it last year with NeoWise?
Yes.
Because it was because we could see it at dusk and at dawn. I was up and I was photographing and of course changing the settings on the camera as it got lighter and lighter and lighter, and then the last few I managed to catch a layer of noctilucent clouds in that, and it made the night really. That just catching those as well with the
it was
with the comet
yeah,
as well.
that was phenomenal. As soon as I found out NeoWise was in the northern sky in July, I was like, please let me get both, and I did, and I literally sat there crying because I was sat out before the NLC even showed photographing NeoWise, and once it started to show, I was there till dawn. I just stayed there for hours, just crying like this is amazing. And yeah, it's not everyone's into the getting up at silly o'clock to see them, but it's kind of like an hour to an hour and a half after sunset that they become visible, and an hour and a half before sunrise. So that means when you're in June, you don't go to bed, basically.
Yeah. I mean, the beauty of it was for me is because I've got my settee. I've got a settee that I lie on when I'm watching the telly. And I'm lying looking, and we got a big bay window in front of where I lie on my settee, and I'm looking directly out of it, and I look directly at the noctilucent clouds just bobbing there in the sky while lying on my settee. Can't get any better, can it? Really? Kath has seen my settee. She's seen
have. Yeah, I can imagine you lying there, Pete, with a nice cup of tea or coffee, watching it. It'd be very nice.
Yeah, just watching it, and it is.
How amazing! But I'd like to just say what you were saying about mobile phones. I didn't have a DSLR until sort of mid to late last year, and wasn't really sure what I was doing with it. But I caught noctilucence using my iPhone 7, and they came out really, really well. So, I mean, that's quite an old camera, mobile phone camera, compared to what's around now. So if you've got one of these all singing, all dancing new ones, I would imagine just as amazing.
You have an app, don't you, Kath, that helps with night photography on your iPhone?
I do, but I didn't actually use that for the noctilucence. I just used the standard camera on it because I think I just got that excited. I was like driving home. I think I was driving home from my dad's, and I was like driving, and I'd never seen them before. And I was like driving along. I was like, those noctilucent clouds. I was talking to myself in the car. I was thinking, are those noctilucent? I think they're noctilucent clouds. So I pulled over in a lay-by. I just got out and took a couple of pictures, and then messaged somebody who lives local to me, who does all weather photography, and just said, "Are these noctilucents? I think I've never seen them before. I think they are." And he was like, "Yes, they are noctilucent." So I was just stood in a lay-by taking pictures with my mobile. Then a lorry driver gets out. "Are you all right, love?" I'm like, yes. I just stopped to look at the noctilucents. He was like, "Oh, I thought you'd broke down." I was like, "No." So yes, but
they are amazing. I think once you've seen them, you're like, if you're not sure, it usually means you haven't, because they're just so different, aren't they? They're very, very different.
Yeah, if you look behind Roger, he's got some up there, and you can see this
with NeoWise from last year.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, I can see that on the other side. I wasn't looking that side. Yeah,
you get to see
and you
them
can see the
evolve.
sun coming up. Yeah.
They sort of, you actually spot them coming, especially in the morning. So you actually look, and there's a faint dappling, and it just strengthens and strengthens, and then you see these sort of filaments that start connecting together, and then you start seeing the wave pattern all coming, and then the iridescence of the blue comes through it, and at that point you have to like slap your jaw to get your mouth to close again, because it's just awe-inspiring.
I'm
just
getting
gonna say,
excited
Simon,
now.
Maybe I was just going to say how poetic Simon was describing it then, till the slapping the jaw, and it just killed the poem then. So, well, it's something for us to look forward to in the coming months, and then we'll have summer, midsummer, and then we'll have part 2 of the season, I guess. Yeah. Let's go over to some further news. What have we got? SpaceX, Andy, second stage tower going up, I believe.
Yes, absolutely. Today they've placed the second stage of the launch tower in Boca Chica, which will eventually be, with the crane on top of it, just under 500 feet tall. I think it's 493 feet tall with the crane. They're building it in stages, so it's a steel construction, and they're making each stage next to the tower. And today they lifted the first completed stage on top of the second completed stage on top of the first one. So that'll be going up over the next few months, and it's going to be the tallest building in South Texas. It's going to be absolutely immense. Also today, the low loader turned up to the launch pad, and it looks like they're taking Starship SN-15 away. So it looks like they're not going to refly it to demonstrate the Starship's reusability, which is a bit of a shame. Whether SN-16 will be scrapped and then move straight to the suborbital flight next year, we don't know. But things are always changing at Boca Chica. You never know what's going to happen next.
So exciting times ahead there, though, isn't there?
Yeah, definitely.
I can't wait for the next launch.
No,
Even if it's next year, we'll have to wait.
Yeah.
Michael, Virgin Atlantic Spaceship 2, any news on what happened with that?
Yeah, it did a fantastic drop from its mothership aircraft. Engine ignited as expected, and the 60-second burn all the way past the Kármán line into space, and got to apogee. I think it was 2 or 3 minutes they'd got at apogee before coming back down into the atmosphere. Brilliant. Saw a fantastic video on YouTube today from the inside of the cabin with the pilot and co-pilot there. Having a big wonder about the view and all that. So yeah, brilliant news. Good news for Virgin Galactic.
So this is really finally the beginning of the age of space tourism, although admittedly only for very rich people at the moment.
And New Mexico then became only the 3rd US state to launch humans into space after the Virgin Galactic's first flight from California, from Mojave. So
That's right. So the spaceport is now officially open, if you like.
Yeah.
So we can buy a ticket to go on board this, I believe, for somewhere in the region of $55,000.
No, a bit more than that.
Yeah,
give me a price. I'll raise you $1,000. Come on.
600,000, I think it is at the moment.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
That's just pocket money. We'll have 2 tickets.
We'll have a whip round here.
Yeah, we'll have a whip round. Do a return.
You can also buy a ticket on the new Shepherd as well, of course.
Given the choice between the two, Virgin seems a much better deal, if you ask me.
Just a tad.
It goes higher than New Shepherd.
I think I prefer the Virgin idea with the aircraft launch. Definitely.
Yeah, because with New Shepherd it just goes up, and when it hits apogee, it just comes straight down again.
Yeah.
At least with Virgin, you get to spend a little time actually in space, taking in the view before coming down again.
Well, Andy, there's a question just come in regarding in space. It's advertised as being on the edge of space, but space is defined as 55 miles above sea level.
Yeah, according to the Virgin website, it says they recognise anything above 80 kilometres that you're in space, and anyone that flies above that line becomes astronauts.
Yeah. What's quoted is something known as I've got to pronounce it as the Kármán line.
Yeah.
And that is 62
kilometers.
miles or 100
Yeah.
kilometers. So
That's right.
that region, yeah. So
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, from up there, the view will be amazing, I guess. Who fancies going? Anyone?
Yeah.
If you got a free ticket, would you go?
Yeah.
up?
Yeah, definitely.
I'd like to see a couple of.
Should we get a group booking going?
I can assure you, they will never let
why don't
us
we
lot
just
on.
have a whip round to send Dave into space?
Sure, Andy. As long as you're on the outside guiding me, I don't mind that.
I'll be there, Dave.
That's
Does,
okay.
does
Just
the
hold your
cost
breath.
reflect whether you get a window seat or not?
Uh,
window seats.
and do they have smoking and non-smoking?
Smoking outside, I think only.
Yeah.
On the wing, there's a little seat.
On the wings, on the wings.
But
What's going on with
interestingly,
that?
I mean,
Sorry, Michael, carry on.
sorry.
Yeah, so that another good news about that is it's their first flight in 2 years because of the problems that they've had in the past. So it's been a long time coming, really.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, Chinese lander. It's started moving around the Martian surface. Any results coming in from that?
Not
Excellent
really.
pictures.
Just a couple of pictures to show.
Couple
that
of pictures
it's
so
much
far.
better.
How would you compare the quality of the images from the Chinese lander compared to the US lander?
It's not comparable.
Have you had to go processing any piece?
Yeah, I've had a mess around with them. They're nowhere near the quality of the Americans from Perseverance by any stretch of the imagination. They're quite blurred, to be honest.
Pete, what's the resolution of the camera on Perseverance? Do you know?
No idea.
No.
But it's on the site. If you go and have a look, it's on the site.
Yeah, I will. It's just that there are a lot of YouTube videos saying Perseverance images in 4K, and I'm thinking, well, the camera is definitely not 4K. And if the original image isn't 4K, you can't make it 4K. So
I mean, processing wise, when I process them, I mean, it's unbelievable the amount of detail that is in these images. What the resolution is, I don't know, but I'll find out when we play the next record. I'll go and have a look.
Have you seen the video recording where the camera is going closer and closer to the Martian surface till it gets to the point where it's, I think they quoted as 3 millimeter away from the surface, but you see, getting down to pebbles and then down to little granulations in the dust, and it just looks so sharp and amazing. So I just absolutely love these images, Pete. Really good stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, are we going to go to a track, Pete?
Yeah, we'll go to a track and we'll come back. I'll have a look on the Mars site, see if I can find some information on the camera. There's so many different cameras. That's the thing. They're all different resolutions. So many different cameras on there at the moment. But so we're going to go to, I think we'll have this track, and it's by Ed Guy, and it's called Space Police.
I don't know whether you caught it today, Pete.
I've just put there we go, recording in progress, but it didn't go out. Well, it might have gone out on air, who knows. So I've just popped in the chat for Andy the details on all the cameras. There are 23 cameras on Perseverance.
I'll have a look.
23. Yeah. So there's a camera for every occasion. They've even borrowed one of my phones to take for doing close-ups. High resolution camera I've got on my phone, one of the highest. It's 1 megapixel, folks. So if you ever need me to come and do photography for you, I have the equipment.
Weddings, bar mitzvahs, and everything.
That's I can do anything. So Dave, are we going to go any more news have we got to talk about, or have we got some listeners' questions?
Yep, we're still on Mars, Perseverance, and apparently the crash site has been imaged as well. So Roger, what have we got on that, mate?
Well, we've managed to obtain the sky crane where it is now actually crashed, and there are photographs of it taken from Perseverance as it's now moved away from its original landing site, and it has actually taken pictures of part of the sky crane. They could actually see the smoke from the crash site, but now they've actually managed to physically see it with the cameras from Perseverance. And there's also some pictures of the drogue chute, which also landed, and it appears to be hanging on a ridge of a hill. So if there's any winds or anything that can capture the actual parachute, it might blow down onto the valley floor at some point. But
and of course, the parachute had a hidden message, didn't it?
yes, it was the logo from the company that sent it up there.
And with the slogan "Dare Mighty Things," which was fantastic,
And
encoded
the
in the markings
coordinates,
on the parachute. It's brilliant.
Yeah, the material for the parachute was manufactured in the West Country.
Bristol, wasn't it?
Yes, where my sails are for my pirate ship.
They have the same.
We use the same manufacturer.
Yeah, wasn't Cameron Balloons? Was it? Okay, he does all stuff like that, doesn't
They're in Bristol, aren't they?
Oh, are they? I know they're down there somewhere. So,
But no, you can get a dress with that parachute design on, and I so very nearly bought it, but part of me wants to make it myself because I'm like a challenge.
Yeah, yes,
I think you should do it. I think you should do it.
Have plenty of time for all these cloudy days.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mary, be careful how you encode that data. One slip and it might say something like "how much for your camel" or something like that.
Well, you know, you can go on a website. There is a website where you can type your name in, and it gives you your design of parachute in the same code. So I might do one with my own name.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That I'm not going to make a dress for myself.
Yeah, is it?
They do t-shirts as well.
Oh, that's all right then. That's fine.
By the way, who was asking last week about color calibration for the cameras on Perseverance?
That was me, Andy.
Yeah, they have got one, Dave. It's there are plenty of images you can find on it, and it's a circle of circles with each one being a slightly different shade.
Yeah, it's on top of the rover.
That's right. It's just next to where the chips are that have got over 1 million people's names on.
Right.
And the amazing thing about that chip, by the way, while we're on the subject, is that the names of the public who sent in their names to fly to Mars with Perseverance, they're not encoded on a chip. They're actually physically written with a laser using very, very, very narrow band laser that's able to write microscopically. So on that chip, people's names are actually written rather than being encoded, which is incredible.
Yeah, it's got BBC Radio Shropshire Eye on the Sky on there. I sent it up, and Whittington Village, Shropshire. And because I did that, it's created such a buzz in the village now. And I've got to, when social distance is ended, I've got to go into the village hall and deliver a presentation on Perseverance, because it's got everybody in the village buzzing about it who normally don't even look up. So, which is, kids are loving it, you know, on the Whittington site. I had one, I don't know if you saw the comment, one person had actually put on the site, he put, your pictures are really realistic from Mars. They're nearly as good as the ones in the Martian film. Is that a compliment? I don't know.
I don't think it's a compliment.
Or a backhanded compliment, I think, Pete.
Well, I mean, some of you have been talking about the weather tonight, but I'd like to tell you the weather on Mars is got a high of -4 degrees and a low of -98 degrees. I presume that is in Fahrenheit. Yes, it is in Fahrenheit.
So you reckon put the big coat on then?
Yeah.
All day. Don't take the big coats off.
Up to north, we don't have big coats. We're not.
I was going to say, in Lancashire, it would take more than that for a big coat to come out.
Exactly. We're hard up north, us. Yeah.
How many days do you think Perseverance has been on Mars?
It's February, isn't it?
February, February.
April, May, June, 90 days about?
93.
Oh, I was close.
Blimey.
Yeah, it seems...
Already, can't believe it. And how many days do we
hang on, I'm reading the wrong thing there. Sorry about this. Oh, I don't know where I got that from.
That was how many days I've been on Earth.
Is it in the sun, Michael?
Yeah.
Michael, if you want to check that up, we'll go to the next bit of news. The super blood moon eclipse. What's happening there? We've got another super moon. 26th of app is right. The 26th is the full moon.
Yeah.
Is
Are we going to see the
there a
eclipse
month
of the
now
moon?
without a supermoon? I mean,
Oh, I think it's super all the
Yeah.
time myself.
Yeah,
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, but this will
Every
be the
day.
biggest one of the year.
Yeah.
The super duper duper.
Why is it like a
Blood moon.
quarter of a millimetre bigger than the last one?
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, what's this one? Is it
You'll
the?
be able to notice it, Pete. It's like
Is
there.
this the flower moon?
The flowers.
Yes.
Yeah, this is the flower
What
moon.
was that?
yeah.
Is it cherry blossom time or something like that? Or strawberries are in season somewhere.
It's whatever's coming out in North America, because most of these are mentioned.
Well, that's it. It's Native American, isn't it?
Native Americans and all
it's
that.
the traditional folklore. Yeah.
A lot of
I
places.
don't actually mind the Native American names of the moon.
Same here.
I don't
yeah.
have a problem with that. It's the supermoon bit that bugs me.
That's me. Yeah, I used to tell people off, even well-known astronomers. I'd say this supermoon. It's a ridiculous tag that started out in the media. Someone actually backtracked and found out where it originated. But it's also everyone's latched onto it, and I am totally opposed to it. It's just ridiculous. But
It's ridiculous.
It's growing and it's growing, and like pollution, it's a battle that we're not going to win. I don't think.
Yeah, because we're going to have basically a full moon, but in certain places in the world, mainly the USA and the Southeast Asia and some of Australia, they will have what is known as a blood moon, which is basically a lunar eclipse, which turns the moon red, which is the opposite to a solar eclipse. It's where the Earth gets in the way of the light for hitting the moon, and it turns it a nice big orange or even a red color. So it's a nice photo opportunity if you get a chance.
The thing does it is anywhere in the world where that moon is going to be of a decent altitude to observe the total eclipse of the moon. Because what I'm thinking is, certainly at this moment in time, we've got quite a few volcanoes that have erupted, lots of dust and ash going into the atmosphere. When we get these, I'm trying to remember, was it Pinatubo where we had the atmosphere was really ashed. We had beautiful sunsets. And when you get an eclipse of the moon with lots of dust, it goes deep red to the point where it actually can disappear from our visual observation. But other than that, you get that beautiful rustic. But I was just looking at the images of Mars that we got on our screens. You get this beautiful rustic colour to the moon as well. But volcanoes might say
they should be able to get some nice images of it. Of course, we'll just have a normal big bright moon and all that in the sky. It's not super, it's something to look forward to. We will get our chance of a blood moon on May the 16th next year. So
right, we'll announce that next year.
Put that in your diary.
For people that don't know what a supermoon actually is, did we explain what the proper name for it is? And
if you would, Mary, please explain if you
will.
No,
I wasn't trying to jump in. Just
no, please,
we dismiss supermoon without saying what it actually is. So the moon's orbit around Earth isn't circular, so sometimes it's elliptical, and sometimes, once a month it will be closer to Earth than at other times of the month, and sometimes that coincides with a full moon. So that is basically, it can be 30% brighter but only like a few percent bigger, which if you have a telescope on it will make a difference, but to the naked eye there is no way that you will notice any difference at all. You just won't, because the moon is tiny against the background sky. To the naked eye it's like half a degree or something. It's
14% bigger, so you're not going to see it with
you won't see that. But any time that you can watch a moon rise, it's amazing, because as Dave said, you never know what color it'll be as it's rising. When it's low in the atmosphere, it can be anywhere from a pale pink through to a red through to a deep brown, and it's only that color for a really short time. Once it gets higher, it starts to look white again. So moonrise is beautiful every night of the year. And I think people get really het up on this. Moon looks massive when there's a supermoon, and it's nothing to do with being perigee when the moon is at its nearest. It's basically the moon illusion. And if you look at the moon in the distance with a house or a tree, it will appear to be bigger, but the moon itself is exactly the same size when it rises as when it's at its highest point. And if you remember, Patrick Moore did an experiment where he watched a moonrise on Selsey Beach standing on his head to try and prove that this was I'm not quite sure what he proved by doing that, but the moon always looks bigger as it's rising.
On his head, I suppose.
So yeah, when people
Even
are talking
Patrick
about
can
a
defy
supermoon,
gravity.
it's a perigee full moon is what we actually mean. That's what it should be called.
Yeah, the
Excellent,
only
Mary.
reason
Thank you
it's
very
called
much.
a super moon is just all like to attract people's attention, and you get all this. It's all blown up in the headlines. It's going to be the biggest. It's going to. Everybody thinks it's going to be, as big as a house or something like that.
But
But
it demonstrates the power of suggestions, because I know people who swear that they've seen a supermoon and it's massive in the sky.
absolutely,
Compared to
It's
how it
because
normally is,
people don't normally look at it, and therefore it's a surprise. And then they're seeing the moon against, say, a local house or a tree,
Yeah.
and they think, "Oh gosh, that's big," but actually they've never looked before, so they've no idea. And of course, it's, as Mary's saying, it's this optical illusion.
Yeah.
Because it's low down, you perceive it as larger, whereas it's when it's high in the sky, you've got nothing to compare it to, and it looks smaller.
The
It's all about
constellations do the same, though. Have you ever noticed how big
Mm.
Orion looks when it's low in the sky in the spring?
There's a major
They're the same
Pegasus.
size.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
I
weird.
noticed that when I was in America, in Florida, in the winter, and because Florida is obviously so many degrees further south than we are, I noticed how small Orion looked to what it does from here.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, Rachel has made an interesting point. Rachel teaches the very young children, and she says that she gets the children to look through a cardboard roll, kitchen roll, toilet roll, whatever roll is available, and basically sight the full moon through that roll when it's rising. When it looks, apparent view is it looks really big. Wait till it gets higher up in the sky, and as it changes. So when you look through the roll, you're cutting out all the horizon, all the buildings, any trees, and you can see that it's actually made no difference at all. But it's great to get the kids involved in doing these little observations as well, I think.
Yeah, you can just use a rolled up piece of paper and obviously tape it in place.
Yeah.
Get them to make it fit the moon nice and snug, and you'll see obviously on the horizon it fits, but it looks bigger. And then when it gets higher, do it again, and you'll see that even though it looks smaller, it's exactly the same size.
Yeah.
At the end of the tube.
Yeah, you can do the same with a piece of beading. Basically, if you've got a coin and a bit of blue tack, you can move the coin to where it actually covers the moon, looking down the line of the bead, the wooden stake, and then if you do it when it rises, get it lined up so you can't see the moon, and then later on when it's high in the sky, you look up and it's still in exactly the same place. You don't have to move it.
Yeah.
So it just proves that it is the same size.
Well, was it Roger that had the picture of the moon rising behind the tower earlier on in the background? Was it? Yeah.
Yes.
So a lot of people do that sort of photography where they use a long lens and do it behind an object from far away, and that gives that impression of the moon being massive. And it's amazing when people do that, but the number of fake versions of that I see online the day after a perigee full moon, where it's done very badly, not as nice as that one is.
Well, I love the ones when you get the moon and they've photographed it and it's in front of the clouds.
Yes, that's always a winner.
And that's a winner.
That's a great optical illusion.
There's an interesting experiment. If anybody out there listening to us tonight knows anybody who thinks that the Earth is flat, there's a really interesting experiment you can do with the moon. So wait till it's a full moon. Get a flat earther to stand in front of you, facing you, with the moon in the background, and punch them very hard.
Right, yes, because we condone violence on the program, of course. Yeah, Peter, I was going to say, back in the old days, we used to take photographs with film, in particular slide film as it was. You could take a photograph of the moon as it rose, where it appears large. You take another frame as it gets higher in the sky, and you would literally, in them days, you cut them in half and sandwich them together, and you see that there was no difference. And the only thing that's happened is you've ruined two lovely pictures of the moon.
I think we say about social media and all these hyping things about the supermoon and all that, and I hate the word supermoon. But I suppose on the other side, flip side of the coin is it's causing people that don't normally look up to look up. And then we can actually explain to them what they're actually seeing, because there are some very misleading things. We had one where they were saying that the Mars was going to appear in the sky the same size as the moon. And it actually made our local paper. They phoned me up to ask me, and I told them the reality of it, and they didn't want that. That's not exciting. So they went to somebody else who said, yes, it's going to be. And of course, it was on the night of an eclipse. And when they saw the moon eclipsed, they thought it was Mars because it was red. And it took ages to convince locals that they were not looking at Mars the same size as the moon. I said, that's the moon. But like I say, on the flip side is that it does cause people who don't normally look up to look up, and at least we've captured their interest then, and maybe we can point them in the right direction. So maybe it's not all bad, although I do hate the term, like Mary, supermoon. I feel like, I can't say, but I do feel very angry about it. I have to say.
It was coined by an astrologer.
I know.
Possibly be wrong.
Exactly.
It gets worse. It gets worse.
It gets worse.
Use that language again.
You know, you all know that my mom's an astrologer, and you know what I have to put up with. And it's
Simon, you've got him on it now. That's it.
That's it. You know, but I have to live with that. It's one of my burdens in life that I have to live with my mom's astrology. But there we go.
But your mum can be, because she's from the Pleiades.
She is. Kath will reinforce that.
Yeah.
Yes.
She's allowed to be.
It's old Kath.
Yes, I managed to keep my jaw up just about while Pete was in the background thinking, oh dear, Kath's been got.
Well, that was the night she was telling everybody at Hurstman Sue she was from the Pleiades when I was doing the keynote speech. But there we go. But that's something, again, what I have to put up with. And Simon started me off now, hasn't he?
Yes,
Simon. Was she dropped on her head when you were a baby?
No, I think I was. I was actually. I was knocked out the pram by a car.
Really?
Yeah. Car
try
came
again?
Round. No, it's never. I've never been right since.
Wow.
That's why I'm sitting.
Thank God for that, Pete.
That's why I'm sitting here with you lot. But there we go.
Okay, should we go to Daz? Daz, I believe we've got a race against time to get to the moon again.
Yeah, basically, it's just something that's cropped up. Of course, we were all expecting the first astronauts to walk on the moon again in 2024. But of course, due to culprit sulking and things like that, it all looks as though it's going to be delayed again, with people disputing the result of the sort of the quest to actually build the moon lander and all that. Of course, it went to SpaceX, and one of his biggest rivals, Mr. Bezos, decided, who was linked up with two of the usual go-to guys for NASA, who usually get all the contracts and all that. He now is putting a complaint and saying that it was they've ignored this, they've ignored that, they've changed the goalposts and things like that. But of course, the unfortunate thing is this is just going to add to the time, possibly, that this is all going to take, and we may not get people on there in 2024. Well, of course, we've just started a new moon cycle back in 2019.
Solar cycle, Daz.
Solar cycle, sorry. Well, we've probably started a moon cycle as well, don't we?
Yeah.
So a solar cycle. Yes, thanks for that, Andy. And of course, the later it goes into the 20s, the sun's going to become more and more active, and of course, this is going to cause more and more solar flares and storms. And unfortunately, these things can be harmful to astronauts. Especially if they're big enough that astronauts are caught outside unprotected, and even if they're actually in their space capsules and all that, they could even be solely harsh, that they could actually even kill people. But also it increases the chances of cancer. So basically, it's a race against time to get. I mean, these solar flares can happen at any time, to be quite honest. But there is a period during the solar cycle when you get 99% of them, but you get the odd one or two that go off any time. So it's always a gamble. But of course, once you start getting sort of like 4 or 5 years into it, 6 years, then you're increasing the chance of these flares going off and causing trouble.
Damage
And
the hardware as well, though, can't it? As well as the
exactly, yeah.
people?
If you get these really harsh solar flares, they could damage all the electronics on Earth.
There've been a few satellites in the space age knocked out by CMEs, haven't there?
Yeah, so it's a risk to not only, but in space, of course, they haven't got the magnetosphere to protect them.
No.
They're exposed to this and all that. And I have mentioned before, it is surprising how many, although they were heavy smokers and heavy drinkers, how many of the old astronauts died of cancer.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a link, maybe not, I don't know. But it's just one of those things. So basically, it's a race against time to get these people on their boots on the moon. If Mr. Bezos would just sort of like bite the bullet and just withdraw his complaint, then we can get on, and hopefully we can get people up there for 2024. But it is a hazard that all astronauts have to face. There was between Apollo 16 and Apollo 17. There was a big flare, which could have caused death or even some sort of like genetic damage to them and all that. And it's something that they've got to consider, putting people on the moon under the Artemis program. So it's just something that they've got to think about, and they've got to basically pull their finger out and try and get people up there as soon as possible.
As you say, Daz, it was a big problem during the Apollo era where we got the moonwalkers. The study of solar flares wasn't that good compared to what we've got till the Skylab was in orbit, and we started studying.
Skylab.
Yeah, you remember the images? You know, these a scope there to monitor the prominences, and that really was the realization of, you know, we've got to be careful. Some was out of solar min, and you know, it wasn't doing a great deal, but they were lucky at that point not to have been blasted. That is what we've got to consider when we go back. It's what they consider when on board the ISS. Any solar flares they can get to the center of the space station, and they are protected to a great degree. But as you said, satellites getting damaged in orbit. 1989, Canada's grid got knocked out. Big power cut, which is great for the night sky. All of a sudden, the Milky Way popped out for the majority of Canada. That was a great thing.
Aurora.
And Aurora as well, and so on.
People who'd never seen it before. I mean,
Yeah.
you had the Carrington event as well, which was another big event.
Well, we are apparently overdue for that now. So
exactly, yeah.
That's
so
going to be a big one.
I think this is why,
test.
because it also appears that the bigger storms and all that, as Andy pointed out to us earlier, and I've just read it myself as well, they tend to happen on the odd years of the cycles. All the cycles are numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think we're on 25 now. It's an odd year, so we could be in for some extra severe flares. It's something they got taken, because it's also one of the things they got to consider with sending people to Mars and things like that, the long exposure to solar radiation and all the space radiation, everything that's out there and all that, as well as just trying to get them to land and safely and things like that. So
one of the best protections against radiation in space is water. And I'm not sure whether they're still doing it, but SpaceX in the early days of the Starship design pictured a system that had a cavity in the wall of the spaceship that was filled with water, a very thin layer of water, but it's amazing what a difference it makes. Of course, the ultimate thing to block radiation with is lead, but that, of course, is entirely impractical because it weighs a ton. But on the moon, you know, there's no water. Well, not easily accessible water anyway. So they'll need to either bury a lunar base under a layer of regolith, and there are some art images somewhere of building a dome and then robots piling up regolith over it to protect the people inside. But it's a problem that, you know, NASA obviously take very, very seriously. And if this solar cycle 25, an odd number means the violent activity is going to occur later in the cycle, the latter half of this decade, we should see the most violent solar activity, which, you know, as you said, Daz, is just when we're planning on going to the moon. So it's a problem that really needs to be taken seriously.
Okay, let's get back to Mars for a moment. Tian in Japan is asking, what is China's goal with their Mars mission?
They haven't really stated an exact goal. It's basically like you know, like NASA and the European Space Agency, searching for evidence of ancient life, identifying layers of ice and water underground. And that's it, really.
Talking about that, I posted something up earlier in the week. You may have seen it, and I don't know if anybody listening remembers when Mariner 4 arrived at Mars in 1965. And we all believed that when it was going to get there, we were going to see vegetation. We were going to see some evidence of life from orbit. And we really did believe it, because if you go back and find the actual Sky at Night program where that was revealed, Patrick Moore himself believed that when we got there with Mariner 4, we would see vegetation, because we hadn't seen Mars close up at that point. We thought it was a lush world. We thought it was a world with vegetation. We thought it was going to have all this evidence of life. And when we got there, we just saw a cratered surface. And I can remember the disappointment of seeing that as a child. I was about, I think, 1965, I was about 9. And you could hear the disappointment in Patrick Moore's voice, and all the scientists who sent Mariner. They were all believed that they would see this lush, vegetated planet, because we hadn't seen it close up. And from the observations, we thought the dark areas were vegetation. And then in 1965, we get there and find it's what it is. And it was a massive, massive disappointment. And at that point, I can remember NASA saying it's not worth sending anything else to Mars at that point. They were not going to send anything else there, but they decided later on to try and then they got Viking to land. But at the point, and then it took a lot of discussion before they decided that we're actually going to send any further missions to Mars. And I remember the discussions being held, and they were saying it's not worth it. It just looks like the moon. There's no point. And they started to concentrate on Venus. And of course, you've got Venera landers on Venus, which again showed this world devoid, because we thought, again, when we go through the clouds of Venus, we were going to land on the surface of Venus and again find a lush world under these clouds. And we didn't. We found what we found. And again, it was a massive disappointment. So it just shows how far we've come. Exactly. In such a short time.
I can remember all the books I read on Mars as a youngster, which would be back in the 60s and 70s. The older books all thought that the colour changes in Mars, the seasonal changes, were due to changes in vegetation and growth. And that was the standard view until
Mariner
blew it out the water.
Yeah, absolutely. And because Venus is that much closer to the sun, it was automatically assumed that it would be a world of tropical rainforests, steamy tropical rainforests, and of course we found out that nature surprised us yet again, because it isn't.
The only people who knew it wasn't going to be like that were Hawkwind. No, well, actually, they did. They wrote a song, and what was it? The Vermilion Deserts of Mars, the Jeweled Forests of Venus.
That's right.
It never was.
10 Seconds of Forever, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it never was.
But it's like you say, Pete, it just goes to show how far we've come, because like you said, back in the 60s and the early 70s, that we didn't know these things, and we had all this imagination and things like that. And if, again, going back to the moon, originally they thought the dark spots on the moon were seas. So you know, it's just one of those things. But as you said, it shows how far we've come and what we've learned. So it's onwards and upwards.
It was kind of like the other way around with Pluto, because everyone said it's just a boring rock. What's the point in sending New Horizons there? And then we find active geology at Pluto, and it's just like,
it's mind blowing,
amazing.
I'm just going to find my favourite painting of Pluto and put it in the chat for you.
I love Pluto. It's
not a planet.
I've got on my wall behind me, you can't see it on the camera, but I've got a lovely painting by somebody of Pluto looking back at the sun. And I don't know who painted that, but they are in the chat at the moment.
Quite talented, were they, Pete?
They're very good at drawing, they were.
Yeah, obviously.
Can we go back to the number of days since Perseverance landed?
Oh, we got to get the right answer this time.
It's an extra day now since that.
No, it was the right answer. It depends how you look at it, because it's actually 93 sols. Martian days that it's been on the surface, or 95 Earth days.
Okay, we'll let you off.
Yeah, that sounds good to us. We'll have that.
Thanks for the correction.
I know there was a 93 somewhere.
We've always known Michael works in souls. He's never worked in days.
So when you're not working, you're having a solid day.
Oh,
God.
Move on to Andy and listen to his bad jokes. Hubble telescope, Andy. What's the latest discoveries or discovery?
Yes, this is quite interesting. Just a bit of background. This is about FRBs, fast radio bursts. Now, these are bursts of radio waves, intense radio waves, coming from deep space, and they last usually about a millisecond, a thousandth of a second. But the energy contained in those bursts is amazing. In a thousandth of a second, they possess more energy than the sun will generate during its entire lifetime. So imagine that. The trouble is that because they only last for a thousandth of a second, they've been very difficult to locate exactly where they come from. And all sorts of theories have come out. Since 2001, we've detected about 1,000 of them, and there's no predictability to them. They go off all over the sky. Some of them repeat, but we don't know why. And those that do repeat vary in the regularity of their repeat, so there's no pattern to that either. A little while ago, a few months ago, one was detected from within our own galaxy, and it was thought to be associated with a magnetar. That is a neutron star which contains which has an incredibly strong magnetic field, so strong it could pull the keys out of your pocket from the distance of the moon. I mean, that's the strength of the magnetic field. They are, apart from black holes, the universe's most bizarre objects. The fast radio burst coming from within our own galaxy thought was to be associated with a particular magnetar. However, the Hubble Space Telescope has examined the last 8 FRBs that have been discovered, and it turns out 5 of them have come from the spiral arms of young massive galaxies, which is where the star formation takes place. In the galaxy, star formation takes place in the spiral arms. And if you look at lots of images of galaxies, you'll see the spiral arms are blue, indicating intensely hot blue-white stars because they're very young. So it begins to look as if fast radio bursts are associated with young stars. We don't know the mechanism. We don't know what causes a young star to emit a radio burst for a thousandth of a second that is more energy than the sun will radiate during its entire lifetime, and how it does it. However, this goes at odds with the idea of the FRBs being due to magnetars, because, of course, magnetars are the remnants of ancient stars at the end of their life. It's the last phase of their life. So this is all very interesting. The plot thickens, as it were. And, of course, there's active research going on. But at least now we know where at least, a quantity of fast radio bursts are located, and they seem to be associated with ancient galaxies, which were very young at the time, of course, young galaxies and young stars in the spiral arms. So all very interesting.
Is it possibly something to do with Wolf-Rayet stars? Because they're quite weird.
Yeah, they are quite weird. Possibly, Ron. Possibly. It's proved difficult enough to locate where they are. I think that now we can think about exactly what type of stars they are, but they definitely seem to be associated with young stars. Whether they're Wolf-Rayet stars remains to be seen.
Yeah, I mean, the mechanisms, there aren't that many. I mean, all you can think of is either collision between 2 very large objects or something blowing up.
But the duration is incredibly short.
It is. That's the odd part.
Yeah. And some of them repeat as well. So it's obviously an event that repeats or can repeat. And most of them don't seem to repeat. A few of them have, but they haven't done so with the same regularity. So who knows? It's a very, very strange conundrum.
Because a classic nova will repeat, won't it? So there must be something going on that is triggering. It's really, really fascinating. What a great time to be a cosmologist.
Oh, it's amazing, isn't it? Yeah.
Every decade, there's something new that becomes the thing. And, so far ago, it was gamma ray bursts. We didn't know what they were, but now we're quite happy with those. And now these are something else to get our teeth into. And in 10 years' time, we'll be going, oh, yeah, those, we know all about them.
Well, the strange thing is, Dave, that, it may turn out that they're generated by magnetars and very young stars through different mechanisms. So, pinpointing which applies in a particular fast radio burst is going to be difficult. But now we know that at least some of them come from young stars, or seem to. We're getting hot on the tail, if you like, of finding out what they are.
So do we know definitely it came from those spiral arms and not something further beyond?
Apparently so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, Simon, we got an anniversary, I believe.
Yes, Helen Sharman, 30 years since she went up in a Soyuz and spent a week on Mir. So all that fun with Tim Peake and everyone saying he's the first Briton in space, hurrah, 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 they were all wrong.
This is we forget about Miss
Is that what they
Sharma.
say? Is that honestly what they say, Simon? That's disgraceful.
That's absolutely true.
Yep.
Yeah.
All the headlines were first Brit in space. It's in my Women in Astronomy talk.
They argue the fact that Helen was part of a Russian mission.
She's still British.
But she's still British.
Still British, yeah.
It's stamped on her passport. And she'll always be there. I was lucky to meet her.
Tim Peake was the first British European Space Agency astronaut.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Oh dear. So it continues,
yes.
So it continues.
Yeah.
It continues as always.
Michael just mentioned the International Space Station, there's going to be some new residents on the International Space Station, as I've just found, flicking through.
That's right.
Apparently, they're sending SpaceX on their 22nd resupply, commercial resupply mission to the space station, is actually launching water bears, which of course we all know is tardigrades.
Little tardigrades.
Everybody's favourite. There's baby squids.
Yeah.
There's baby squids, and they're also sending up cotton plants. Well, we know tardigrades have been in space before. They were actually exposed to the vacuum and coldness of space for a certain amount of time. Then they were brought back in, and they did revive. They revived themselves.
Are they not also now on the moon?
Yes, and they were exposed to that radiation, and they're just waiting for us to turn up again.
I've seen those sci-fi films in the 50s.
They may not have survived the impact of the moon, though, because that crashed, didn't it? But if they survive the impact, they will totally just hang out until someone goes to rescue them.
Yeah, and they'll be about 6 foot long and all that, with big teeth and all that, and have ray guns and all that. So they'll recycle all those probes that we crashed on the.
You don't want an Andy Tardigrade. Tardigrade, yeah.
Andy Tardigrade.
Talking of the ISS, isn't there a new module going up soon as well?
Yeah, I did see something about that.
Yeah, trying to find it.
There's a space station that is launching, a private space station.
Yes.
That is going to be built on the side of the ISS and then detach itself to become its own.
The Axiom.
That's the Axiom space. Yeah, Axiom space.
The new ISS module is called Nauka, Nauka.
Yeah, I thought that was Pete's phone. Yeah. So yeah, this is going up, I think, quite soon, isn't it, Michael?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Yeah. So
planned to launch on the 15th of July. Nauka.
Yeah. If you go to YouTube and look up a guy called Marcus House, he did a fascinating video at the weekend of the history of commercial spaceflight, and it's really, really interesting.
Is that a house as in house?
As in house. Marcus House. He's an Australian guy. He does a couple of videos a week. Very young, very enthusiastic.
And I've just found it. I'll have a look at that in a bit then.
Yeah, he did a video about the history of private spaceflight and where it's going and what's coming up. So
yeah,
really good video. I recommend that to anybody.
Okay, just before we go to another track, any news on the James Webb project? Latest test or launch dates, if possible?
Well, it's been delayed. Looks
again.
like it may be delayed again because I think did we mention this last week? I lose track.
We did, yeah.
Because the European Space Agency's got problems with the Ariane launcher, which is going to launch the James Webb Space Telescope. Because in the last few missions, when they've come to release the fairings, which are the two halves of the nose cone that drop away to reveal the payload, the rocket has unexpectedly accelerated for some reason, and it hasn't affected the mission. The mission's been total success. The payload's been fine,
Ariane did what it was meant to do, but they're a bit wary about launching the James Webb if there's a problem with the rocket as regards the fairing and unexplained acceleration. So they're not saying it will be delayed, but it's quite possible, because between now and the projected launch date of October the 31st, Ariane has got 2 missions scheduled, during which the European Space Agency hopes to find out more about this particular problem, A, to see if it recurs. If it doesn't recur, that's even more worrying, because it means it's intermittent, which is always worrying. And secondly, because it's a telescope costing $10 billion. And, to see that ending up in the ocean because of a problem with the rocket would kill any new launches of space telescopes for the foreseeable future. Because nobody's going to fund another one if that happens.
Yeah.
So it's
On
a very
hold until-
dangerous situation with the James Webb. This week, or last week actually, they unfurled its mirror to test the deployment mechanism for the last time before packing it up in an IKEA box and sending it on its way into space in October, hopefully.
Okay, so all on hold. So Peter, have we got a track? You got your record ready with your needle
I'm
hovering?
I'll spin one up.
Spin it up, mate. Not half.
Not half. It's all for charity, mate.
Not half.
Well, charity. Let's go. Let's rock.
This
I
one,
love the design you've done
catchphrase.
with that horn on that gramophone. It looks great.
yeah, this one is called "The Man Left in Space," and it's by a band called Cosmograph.
An impact. And
Okay, this is Pete here on Reach Out and Touch Space on Astro Radio. We're going to go back over to the chat, and I've got a question that's come in from Serge in India, and we'll quickly go around the panel and ask them this question. The question is, Mars and the rovers on Mars, Chinese and Perseverance, do you think they will find any evidence of life, Daz?
Yeah.
Yeah. You think they will?
Yeah,
Microbial
I
life.
think once they get to the edges of that lake, the estuary, where the estuary comes in, I think they'll find something there. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mary?
I think we will,
Yeah.
definitely.
Rachel?
Yeah, I think I'm hopeful. Yeah.
Yeah, she's looking hopeful there. Rachel's looking hopeful. But we find life. Dave?
I'm going for a fossilized evidence
Hmm.
of sorts.
Yeah.
Edging me bet.
Yeah. So at least it's evidence that there was.
There
So,
was, yeah.
Andy?
I would just say if they don't find it in that location next to a river delta, they're not going to find it anywhere.
Hmm.
So I'm keeping an open mind on this. Yes,
Prime area.
maybe no, maybe who knows.
Michael?
I say yes.
Yeah. So Simon?
no.
He would, wouldn't he?
Controversial.
Yeah. No. It's an honest answer. It's an honest answer.
Well,
there.
no, we want the Rosalind Franklin to go up and find stuff. Not the ones that are up there, not the American
Yeah.
stuff,
No.
not the Chinese
Yeah.
one. The Rosalind Franklin is going to go up and find life.
Absolutely, yes.
That's true.
Yes,
That's true.
Fly the
definitely.
flag for Rosalind.
Ron?
Yeah.
I'm with Dave and Andy on this. I think it's probably the best chance and fossilized, but I'm not sure.
Kath?
I'm quite confident they'll find something. I imagine, as you say, fossilized. I just really believe there must have been some form of life there.
Yeah.
Back in the beginnings. I think
In
there's
the
got to have
beginning of
been.
time.
Yeah, before it lost its atmosphere. I think there's got to have been something must have started there.
And Roger?
I'm very hopeful that there is. Well, we'll see.
Yeah. And Rachel, how excited do you think the kids will be if we did find life on Mars?
I think they'd be really excited. I think they'd immediately go to level alien. But
Oh, of course, yeah. Ray guns and
I think it's curbing the excitement maybe away from little green men and sort of showing them what could have been. That would be nice.
Marvin the Martians.
But whatever life we do find, if we do find it, what effect will that have on everybody here?
Yeah, that's a question for another night, that one. That's a philosophical question, and it delves into religion as well, I would imagine.
Yeah.
So anyway, thank you to the panel tonight for being here on Astro Radio.
Thank you, Pete.
We're
Thank
going
you.
Thank you.
Thank
we'll
you
be-
for having us.
No,
Thank you
well,
for everyone listening to us as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Thank you, listeners.
Yeah.
We Can you bring biscuits next time?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Bring biscuit and cake.
Salt and vinegar.
Oh,
I've been off the salt and vinegar tonight. I've been eating I was going to say this. It's a cheese wheel containing 24 slices of different types of cheese from Spain. And
I can go for
got
that.
through the lot.
Yeah.
So.
As long as you're not sprinkling salt and vinegar on it. I
So
don't mind.
we're going to leave you with Andy's dietary habits. We'll be back on Thursday. Good night, and thank you very much for listening to Reach Out and Touch Space. Going to leave you with Cats in Space and Jupiter Calling.